The house was too quiet. When the air came in, it felt strange, heavy, still, as if something living had been torn from the place. I stood at the door for a moment, with the keys in hand, waiting for a sound that did not come. Not even the murmur of the TV in the living room, nor the knocking of Michael's boots on the stairs, nor the clinking of Sarah's dishes in the kitchen. Only silence. The curtains were missing, not only pulled aside, but completely ripped out. The rods hung bare over the windows, with the screws leaving holes like fresh scars. The sofa was gone, the photos were gone too. The wall of memories I helped put together last spring was erased. On the dining room table, a lonely vase lay overturned, with dry stems peeking out. I moved forward slowly, my steps creaking on the wooden floor. In the hall, I noticed the corner where Sarah kept her daughter's shoes, empty. I walked down the hall, not knowing what I was looking for, until I saw it, a white envelope on the ground, trapped under the closet door. My name, Mom, scribbled in Michael's hasty handwriting. I picked it up and opened it carefully. The letter was short. "Thanks for the gift, Mom. We're going to a place where real people succeed. Do not follow us." No greeting, no explanation, not even a signature. I didn't drop the letter immediately. I stood there, reading the sentence over and over, trying to decipher it. I felt the walls breathing around me. The plants I had pruned that day before were dry as bone. The orchid by the window, dead. The rosemary in the kitchen pot, gone. I finally knelt down and leaned against the wall. The envelope hung from my hand like a forgotten receipt. I should have felt something, anger, pain, betrayal, but I was only tired. My legs were aching. My back was burning. I dropped my head against the wall and let the silence fill me. And then, under that numbness, I smiled. Because 6 weeks ago, when Michael begged me to save the house from foreclosure, when I emptied my retirement savings and transferred the last of what I had to his account, I did something else. I put the deed in my name. It was something quiet, legal, barely a detail in the papers he signed without reading. He thought I was just refinancing. No, he hadn't sold the house. He tried to sell mine, and now I had a reason to remember exactly how we got here. The apartment was not grand, but it was enough. A studio above an old building with windows that fogged up in the mornings and a stove that hummed as if it had something to say. I made tea almost every night and read under the lamp in the corner. Quiet, predictable, mine. When Michael called that Tuesday night, I almost didn't answer. I looked at the screen, his name glowing, my finger hesitating. The last time he called after 9 was to ask me to bail him out of a bad month that became 5. Still, I answered. It didn't start with a hello. He just said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know who else to call." His voice broke, then silence. I got up and walked to the window. The parking lot below was empty, except for my battered sedan and a pizza box tossed near the curb. I pressed the phone against my ear. "What's wrong, Michael? I'm not going to lose the house." The words came out like a confession. He told me about late payments, a bad streak at work, Sarah threatening to take their daughter and stay with her sister. He spoke fast, then slow, then fast again. I'd heard despair before. 3 numbers, $800,000 in debts and accumulated fines. A notice of foreclosure stuck to the door that morning. I know I've messed up, but this isn't just for me. It's for the family. I didn't say anything. I sat on the edge of the couch, my hand covering my mouth. I'd heard pleas like this before, different versions of the same story. And each time I helped, and each time he vanished when the crisis passed. But he had never spoken of his daughter, not like that. "Let me check the numbers," I said at last. 2 days later, I was at the county clerk's office, a gray room with a potted plant in the corner and a pile of legal folders scattered on the counter. I had liquidated my savings, emptied my emergency account. My banker looked at me like I had lost my mind. "I want to add my name during the refinancing," I told the clerk calmly, firmly. Michael never read the papers. He signed where I pointed, even smiled. Outside, he hugged me tightly and said, "You really are my lifeline." And for a moment, I believed him. Until the night of the dinner. The table was set for 6, though there were only 4 of us. Candles flickered on napkins bought at the supermarket, folded into clumsy triangles. Michael was grilling outside, humming a half-forgotten song from high school, as if it were just another night. Sarah moved around the kitchen in a calculated silence. She didn't look at me when I offered to help. She just shook her head and kept cutting vegetables that didn't need more knives. Their daughter, Emily, was sitting in the living room, building towers with dominoes, oblivious to the tension in the air. When we sat down, Michael raised a glass of cheap sparkling wine and said, "For Mom, the reason we still have a roof." He smiled big, teeth on display, photo ready. Sarah clinked her glass halfway. Emily clapped without knowing why. The food was passable. The conversation was fragile. Michael dominated it, telling stories of his old job, spinning plans for a comeback and future business. I nodded, asked polite questions. I tried not to notice how long Sarah stared at her plate. At the end of the night, he took a selfie with me on the porch. I was in my sweater, hair frizzy from the grill smoke, while he put on his coat. "Nothing like a mother's love." "Grateful," he wrote. I watched him type while we stood there, the porch light buzzing. He turned the screen toward me, as if I should be proud. Later, while going to the bathroom in the hall, I heard voices behind the half-open door of their bedroom. "She's not going to ask for it back," Michael whispered. "Don't worry, she's old now. What else is she going to do with it?" Sarah didn't answer. Or maybe she did, but I didn't stay to listen. I stepped back carefully, avoiding the creaking floor, and returned to the guest room with a stomach full of stones. The next morning, he kissed me on the cheek and thanked me again. He said it was a blessing, that he'd start paying me back little by little soon. I nodded, but I didn't believe him. Back home, I turned off the radio and drove in silence. There was a taste in my mouth I couldn't name. Not quite regret, not yet. And then, just a week later, I arrived at an empty house. It was Friday, mid-morning. I just returned from the market. Milk, cereal, liquid soap, nothing out of the ordinary. I parked in the driveway as always, with the key still in hand, when I noticed the silence. No cars, no tricycle overturned in the yard, no nervous barking of their dog, Max. The flower pots on the porch were scattered, the dry earth spilled, as if the scene had been abandoned. Inside, the air was colder than normal. I crossed the door and felt it. They were gone. The room was bare. The dining room table was still there, but not the chairs. The kitchen looked like it had been cleaned in a rush, scrubbed just enough to hide the mess. The cabinets were half open, the fridge almost empty, a juice box alone on the door like an echo of Emily's breakfast. I walked slowly, without shouting. I knew no one would answer. There were no suitcases, no signs of life, just a note on the floor, folded and carelessly left near the staircase. I picked it up. "Thanks for nothing, Mom. We're going where real people make it. Don't follow us." No explanation, no apology, just arrogance written in marker. I sat on the nearest step, the letter limp in my hand. I stared into the space where their shoes used to pile up. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I folded the note carefully and put it in my bag, like a receipt for something I never asked for. Outside, the neighbors were walking their dog, the same couple who always greeted me on weekends. The man raised his hand, smiling as if everything was okay. I barely responded. My hand barely rose. Then I got into the car and drove straight to the county clerk's office. Clerk Clara recognized me. She wore purple glasses and an expression of calm that didn't falter when I told her what I suspected. She asked me to wait while she checked. It didn't take long. "Yesterday they tried to record a sale," she said, typing. "But the system rejected it. The deed is in your name, Mrs. Thompson. The transfer you requested during the refinancing held." I exhaled slowly. It wasn't relief, exactly. Something more solid, like steel settling in. "Then the sale is legally invalid?" Any attempt to transfer without my signature is not valid? I asked. I've already put a restriction on the file, she confirmed. I thanked her, took the updated documents, and walked out to the parking lot, clutching the folder tightly against my chest. Let them run to Cancun, let them think they got away with it, because they would soon discover they sold a house that wasn't theirs. And that wasn't the worst. I didn't call, I didn't text, I didn't send them a word. I waited. 3 days passed. I stayed in the house with the curtains half closed, following my routine as if nothing had happened. I watered the wilted basil in the kitchen, cleaned the pantry, and packed the mess they left behind: a broken cup, a sock without a pair, a bag of stale chocolates. On the 4th day, the calls began. The first was from a Cancun code. I let it go to voicemail, then another, and 5 more. I didn't listen to them right away. I saw the screen light up and go dark, light up and go dark, like a pulse that no longer felt like mine. By nightfall, there were 9 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 1 from Sarah, 1 from Michael. I put it on speakerphone while I made coffee. Sarah's voice was sharp, frantic. "Mary, we have a problem. The buyer's agent says the funds are held. The deed didn't go through. What did you do?" The next one was slower, angrier. "You have to call us. Michael says the county clerk insists everything is in your name. That's not possible, right? You gave it away, didn't you? And then, Michael, you ruined everything. Do you understand? You screwed us, Mom. They froze the account. You have 1 day to fix it, or we take legal action." I poured the coffee, added some cream, and listened to the angriest message again. Then I wrote a group text. By law, I am the sole owner of the house in question. The attempted sale was not authorized. The funds will be returned to the buyers. The house remains in my name. The locks have been changed. I didn't sign it. I didn't write Mom. I wanted the words to speak for themselves. 3 hours passed. Nothing. And then another voicemail. Michael again. The tone was no longer as firm. His voice unraveled, like a rope carrying too much weight. "Do you think this is funny? Sarah threatens to leave. Emily cries every night. We counted on that money." He paused, then softer. "You can't do this." But I could. And I did. I put down my phone, opened the back door, and let the fresh air fill the kitchen. There was no satisfaction, not exactly, only the firm calm of boundaries that were finally untouchable. The next morning, I filed a formal report at the police station for attempted fraudulent sale. I sent the buyer's people a copy of every document, every stamp, every signature. By the end of the day, the transaction was dead. But they weren't done trying. He called from a blocked number late on a Wednesday night. I hardly answer, but something inside me was curious, perhaps cruelly so. I picked up the phone and didn't speak. "Mom," his voice was weak, weaker than I had ever heard it. He waited a moment, and when I didn't respond, he continued. "She said she's tired of playing family with a fraud. She said I should have listened to you." He gave a dry laugh that ended in a cough. "I'm in a motel near the road. I have nothing, Mom. I just need you to understand what you've done. You destroyed us." I leaned back in the kitchen chair, listening to his breathing, the distant hum of a vending machine behind him. "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself." There was a long silence. "I know I messed up. I know, but we're family. Can't we start over? Maybe I could stay with you just until I get back on my feet." I closed my eyes for a moment. I could imagine his backpack on the floor, his charm faded, his wounded, rehearsed apologies. And then the slow return of the old patterns, the fridge emptying, debts piling up, noise. "I think you should stay where you are," I said. "Are you serious?" His voice hardened. "After all I've done for you?" I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Good night, Michael," and I hung up. I didn't block the number. I didn't need to. He wouldn't call again until he thought he could use me anew. The next morning, I saw the mail truck pulling away. In the mailbox was a thick envelope of papers from his lawyer, an offer to resolve the matter amicably with a proposed agreement. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I took it inside, placed it on the desk, and started to make coffee. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and lemon, and the light filtered softly through the window. I would take up their offer after breakfast. I started with the guest room. Michael's old golf clubs were still lying in the corner of the closet, full of dust. A broken humidifier, a tangle of extension cords. I sorted everything into junk, donate, and keep. The keep pile was the smallest. I found a plastic box with photos, baby pictures, school portraits, birthday parties. Sarah smiling tensely in front of a cake. Michael holding Emily in the hospital, still with the face of a teenager playing dad. I didn't burn them. I didn't break them. I packed them carefully. I labeled the box with a black marker, Thompson Personal. Personal. Then I opened the windows and started painting. The yellow walls had faded over the years, heavy with smudges and a history that no longer felt like mine. I chose a light gray, clean, quiet mine. I set up a folding table, my easel, the watercolor set I hadn't used in over 10 years. I hung a cork board, bought a new lamp. By the weekend, the room no longer looked anything like before, and neither did I. I started outside, pulling weeds from the flower beds and planting a new path, daisies, simple things, full of hope. They wouldn't bloom for months, but I planted them anyway. Belonging had always been paperwork, mortgages, insurance, maintenance records, but now it was like air, like breathing. The house was mine, yes, but more than that, I felt I was finally inhabiting it without apologizing. That afternoon, I sealed the box of memories and drove to the nearest post office. I addressed it to the post office box Michael had listed in the lawyer's letter. No sender, no note, just a yellow post. It stuck inside the flap before closing it. Return to sender. I no longer live here, not for you. I left it on the counter, nodded to the employee, and walked out without waiting for a receipt. That night, I sat in my new studio, brush in hand, and watched the sun slip through the kitchen blinds. The silence in the house was now full, not empty. I didn't miss their voices. I didn't wonder where they were. I knew exactly where I was. The lawyer's envelope remained unopened on the table beside me. I finally took it. The mediation request arrived 2 weeks later, written neatly on official paper with Michael's lawyer's name stamped in the corner. They called it a family-focused resolution, an opportunity to talk face-to-face and find mutual understanding. I didn't feel anger, just exhaustion from explanations that never came with change. I wrote a short reply, thanked them for the invitation, and politely declined. That Sunday, I returned to the community center where I had enrolled in pottery classes. We were mostly retirees, with some younger ones looking for a rhythm. I wasn't very good, but I didn't care. My hands always ended up covered in clay by the end of the class. The workshop smelled of eucalyptus from the teacher's diffuser and the earthy tang of wet clay. I made small bowls. Some broke, others held. After class, I stopped by the local nursery and bought another pot of daisies. The first ones I planted were starting to sprout. Not much, but enough to feel like something taking root. That night, as I locked up the house, a ping sounded on my phone, an email. The subject line read, "I hope it's not too late." It was from Sarah. She kept it brief. "I know I don't owe you anything, but I wanted you to know I left. Really, this time, not for the house, for everything. You were the only one who was always there, even when we didn't deserve it. I'm sorry. I hope your flowers bloom. Sarah." I read it twice, then again, not because I didn't understand, but because I did. Then I deleted it, not out of spite, not even pain, but because I needed to exist beyond that moment. I had nothing to prove, no role to play, no place to claim. I walked into the hallway, the same one where I hid when the shouting was too much, when Michael's anger clashed with Sarah's silence, and my presence was treated as something optional. I sat barefoot on the cold floor. I lit a candle. I let the aroma waft over as I leaned against the wall. I did the right thing, I said aloud, not for revenge, not for validation. For me. There were no ghosts. There was no guilt in my stomach. No more owed love. No more unpaid debt. The next morning, I went out to the patio. The sunlight fell just right on the corner flower bed. A daisy had opened its small white face, tilted toward the sky. I smiled, bent down, and touched the petals with my fingertips. It was time to write something new.